Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Hart, and today I'll be breaking down the 6-game NBA slate we have here for Thursday night, talking through some of my favorite core plays based on the injury news right now. So hit that like button and let's get into the video. So starting off with the Knicks versus Boston. Before I get into it, all I just gotta say is Brad Beal. That describes my night in 2 words: Brad Beal. So moving on to the Knicks versus Boston, we have Julius Randle 9-9, who has been playing fantastic. I mean, the minutes are there. Shot attempts are there. The rebounds have been fantastic. Assists. I mean, it's hard to deny that he's been one of the most, I wouldn't say efficient, but one of the best players just in terms of fantasy output the past month and a half, maybe the past 2 months. He's just been on an absolute tear. So I do really like him here versus Boston. A little bit of a tougher matchup. Obviously some blowout risk because I do think a lot of the Boston guys should be back for this game tomorrow night. So there's definitely some blowout risk here versus Boston. But Randall looks great. Brunson at this price tag in this matchup, he's just more of a contrarian play for me. Like, I don't think I can get there. He's finally coming back down to earth the past 2 games. Yeah, I mean, at 8,000, don't love the price tag. Don't think it's really great on him. So, would rather pay up for a guy like Randall, or if you want to get a piece, I'd rather pay down for a guy like RJ Barrett. You know, the minutes, shot attempts are there. It just comes down to if he's going to get you some peripheral stats. If he does, he has the upside to, you know, high 40s, maybe even 50s if he's shooting really well. But otherwise, he can burn you. As you can see here, 33 minutes. 16 points, just no peripheral stats, and, you know, kind of screwed you. So the really only interest for me right now is going to be Julius Randle out of the big 3. The other 2 more contrarian plays. In terms of the value, like, sure, you can get to it quickly. Who's seen solid minutes off the bench? I don't mind him. He looks decent there at that price tag. Same thing with Grimes. And I mean, these 2 guys are both going to be seeing mid 20s minutes. Grimes will probably see mid 30s just because he is the starter. So yeah, a good amount of interest in both of them. In terms of the bigs, you know, Sims has been starting. Came back down to earth that last game, 25 minutes, only 6 fantasy points. I mean, that's kind of his range. Either he's going to get you high 20s because he's doing very well, or he can get you 6 in 27 minutes. So Sims, a little bit of interest. I don't think there's a need to get to him right now. Hartenstein is kind of the other big. He'll split time with him. If you want to take a shot, I'd rather take a shot on Hartenstein over Sims. And then Obi has, you know, getting in a little bit of minutes. He's productive, but not enough to really look at him. It's really just going to be the big 3 for me and maybe one of the value pieces. On to Boston. Obviously, as I said, the big news is these guys are probably back. As I said, Jaylen Brown should be back. Smart still out, but Brogdon's back. You pretty much got the whole team besides Marcus Smart. So with that being said, it's really just Tatum and Brown. I mean, I don't know if I have really any interest in them right now. They're kind of priced up a little bit, you know, kind of high. And with Smart out, you know, they should slide. I would assume Derek White's just going to remain in the starting lineup. Brogdon off the bench. Maybe a little bit of interest in Brogdon. You know, the minutes aren't great. They were great the past 2 games, but before that, we know he could dip down to mid-20s. Even with Smart out, you know, it's not guaranteed that he'll see 30-plus minutes. So with that in mind, you know, I have a good amount of interest in him. If, you know, White's going to be super chalky and starting, I'd rather pay for Brogdon off the bench because White is known to get in foul trouble. He's known to have bad games, and they could easily go to Brogdon. So right now, I think my favorite play is going to be Brogdon there at 6,000. Other people are going to be secondary plays for me right now. Robert Williams, don't mind him. You know, he did saw 31 minutes with no Al Horford. He'll probably see kind of like close to around the same minutes. So I have a little bit of interest in him. In terms of the value, nothing really stands out. So it's really just going to be Brogdon for me as of right now at 6,000. And then that's really it. I can't really get to anyone else on Boston as of right now. Moving on to the Bulls versus Charlotte. Obviously, great game environment here. DeRozan, Vooch, Levine, all still priced up, you know, pretty high. So with that being said, no real like standouts in terms of price points from these guys. I mean, they're all going to, 3 of them are going to be playing big minutes, close to 38 minutes a game. Vooch has been the most consistent. He really starts off hot and then really cools off in that second half. So with that being said, once again, I think DeMar is going to be the safest bet. You know, it just comes down to if he can score enough or get those peripheral stats to really pay off that price tag. But in terms of like a lineup build, if you fall on one of these guys, sure. I don't think I'd go out of my way to play any one of them right now, unless you want to. I'd say maybe Vooch, because also, you know, they're playing Charlotte, great matchup. So one of them, it's just you don't feel great about locking in one of those guys at like 9,000 because they could easily tank your lineup, and they don't necessarily have the highest ceilings for a guy you want in the 9,000 range. Moving on to the rest of the team, I mean, Pat Williams has been decent, came back down to earth that last game. Okay value play. Then we have like Caruso, White, DeSumo. If you had to get to one, maybe I'd get to Caruso. just because he has a little bit safer of a floor with like the blocks and steals, but he's known to be a bad shooter. So I don't know. I don't really feel great about any of them right now to kind of force him in the lineup. On the Charlotte side, if LaMelo Ball is back, I do have a good amount of interest in him, as I said, with the Bulls. Every game, they tend to give up a ton of points to the opposing star players, like their best game. So, if LaMelo Ball is back, you can expect him to go for like 50 plus fantasy points. So if he's in, I do like him a good amount. If he's out, once again, Terry Rozier looks fantastic at 8-1. As I say, every slate, it just comes down if he can hit his shot and the game stays close, because he's got the minutes, he's got the usage, the shot attempts, he's solid at the peripheral stats. It really just comes down to if this game stays close and if he can hit his shots, he's fantastic at 8-1. In terms of like the secondary pieces, Plumlee's been playing great, so he should be playing a good amount of minutes, trying to guard Vooch. So I don't mind him there. It's just not the best price tag. Same thing with Washington, McDaniels. They're all just kind of there. Gordon Hayward should be back for this game. That kind of just crowds the front court and a little bit of usage for guys like Washington and McDaniels. In terms of the value, you can take a shot on one of the backup centers. Mark Williams only saw 6. I think Richard saw 17. So, I mean, they're just all over the place with like who they're going to play the backup center minutes to. It really makes no sense. So if you want to take a shot on one of them, sure, you can do it. But I really just would stay away from Charlotte as of right now, even though it's a solid matchup versus the Bulls, unless you're going to get to one of the top 2 if LaMelo's in. Moving on to Detroit and Brooklyn. We got Bogdan here at 6'9". Price is coming up to that point where it's just like, I don't really have interest. He's very score independent. Good matchup here versus Brooklyn. It's just, I mean, he has upside, but do you really want to be paying almost $7,000 for Bogdan, who's super score independent? Bad team here. So for me right now, I'm going to avoid him. Don't mind Ivy. It's just the minutes are not the best. He's been doing better recently in terms of his fantasy output and minutes. Like before, he was only seeing like mid-20s, even with like Cade out, other guys out, but now he's seeing closer into mid-30s. So I do like him there at 6,300. Killian Hayes, more of a secondary play. I mean, he still has upside. He hasn't been shooting the ball great the past 2 games. But yeah, I mean, the price tags are solid on those 2. Bay's price tag has come up, so he looks okay. I mean, just a little bit of interest in this Detroit team. If you want like to really target someone, I think it'd still be Duren here. Played 31 minutes in like a 60-point blowout, which makes no sense, but got a double-double, 52 fantasy points, best game of the season so far. But we know he has that upside. So at 5,100, I do really like him here versus Brooklyn. He should see a good amount of minutes. So yeah, I do like him a good amount there. Double-double upside going against Nick Claxton. So yeah, don't mind him. And then in terms of like the rest of the team, if Stewart is back, maybe it's a slight downgrade to Duren, but I'd still like Duren. You could get to Stewart at that price tag, but yeah, it's really just going to be Duren for me as of right now. No real need to get into the value plays. Sure, you could take a dart throw on Burks, hope he has a good scoring game, but they're kind of giving more minutes to a guy like Hayes now and Ivy, so don't think there's a need to get to Burks as of right now. Moving on to Brooklyn. Kyrie's coming off a decent game tonight. I think he finished with like 47 fantasy points. It was quiet through most of the quarters, but 10-3 versus Detroit, he looks fantastic. He's been on a great streak. He was averaging 39 points the past 3 games. Going into tonight, I think he had like 27, 8 around there. But yeah, I mean, Kyrie looks like a great spin-up play. Claxton has been fantastic. I mean, he had another fantastic game tonight. He's been averaging close to 44, 45 fantasy points the past 5 games. Another great matchup here versus Detroit. So I do have a good amount of interest in Nick Claxton. I mean, he's proven his play, so I don't mind buying into him and Kyrie. The rest of the team just kind of there for me. Seth Curry had his best shooting night of the season tonight. If people chase that, I'm not going to go there at 5,000. He's kind of just there, price range. But that's really it. You can take Sean Joe Harris is valued 4,100. Don't mind him. But yeah, I mean, that's really just going to be it for me. TJ Warren's there as well, but they're just risky dart throws. Very score independent. Moving on to Cleveland and Houston. We get it, the best matchup you could ask for versus Houston. What did Brad Beal do today? 13 points. 13 points. But Donovan Mitchell, he could be out. They're saying this groin, it could keep him out 3 to 4 games. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's out. If he's out, obviously good amount of interest in Garland there at that price tag. Mobley, Allen, LeVert. LeVert should move in the starting lineup 5,600. I think he'd be a very, very solid play. I do have more interest in guys like Mobley and Allen. We saw them be more aggressive when Donovan Mitchell gets out. Allen's coming off a very solid game there. And then in terms of the value, I think Kevin Love would be someone I'd take a dart throw on. I don't think there's really a need to get to any of these value pieces it's really just going to be the kind of the big four for me, and that's really it. Maybe you could see more minutes for a guy like Ricky Rubio there. Saw 13 minutes, we haven't seen a game yet where Rubio's been like fully healthy, kind of off the minutes limit, and this could be that spot. So do have a good amount of interest in Ricky Rubio here if Donovan Mitchell's out. Now, if Mitchell's in, it's really just going to be Mitchell for me. And then maybe I'd take a shot on a guy like Allen, but that's really it. Moving on to Houston. Sengun coming off a triple-double. I think he got a triple-double tonight, so he's been fantastic the past like 2 weeks, or excuse me, like the past week. So I don't mind going to him. It's just I don't love the price tag, and I also don't love the matchup going against Mobley and Allen. Two very solid defensive bigs, so he's just there for me. If you want to get to him, sure, ride the hot streak, but I don't advise it in this matchup. Green, same thing. He kind of seems priced about right. If I was going to get to someone, maybe it would be Jabari Smith. I mean, minutes were limited today. They'll probably be limited tomorrow, so not a lot of interest for me in this Houston side. A lot of blow-up potential. Moving on to Dallas Phoenix, should be a great matchup. Luka absolutely owns the Suns, so probably expect Luka to go for like 100 fantasy points tomorrow, but 12-7, if you can find value for Luka, if we don't get any big news, it'd be contrarian to play him. But as of right now, no real interest in Luka unless we get, some value pieces, because I don't like jamming him, and especially when he's close to 13,000, really restricting your lineup. I mean, it's a great way to be contrarian if there's no value that opens up, but I think it's just a little bit forced. If Christian Wood is back, it looks like he's questionable. I think he's still out, so I don't know why they're saying he's questionable. Let's say he's in. Would have a little bit of interest in him, but if he's out, Dinwiddie looks a little bit too cheap here. He's playing the minutes. He's not the best shooter right now, but yeah, I mean, he's been solid. So I do have a good amount of interest in Dinwiddie. He's been picking up a little bit here recently. Hardaway Jr., he'll shoot the ball a ton. It just comes down if he's hitting the shots. If he does, he has like 40 fantasy point upside. If not, he has like 15 fantasy point downside. So that's kind of the ups and downs with a guy like Tim Hardaway Jr. In the rest of the team, Finney Smith, Powell, they'll see decent minutes off the bench. I'm sure you can get to one of them. I don't mind it. They're just kind of there for me in terms of value. And I will mention, where is he? Josh Green, 3,500. He's been playing solid minutes. He's an okay value piece. But yeah, it's really just going to be Dinwiddie and Luka for me. Maybe Tim Hardaway Jr. if you're feeling a little bit riskier. Phoenix side, Chris Paul looks solid here, 7-7. Coming off of 2 very solid games. They absolutely blew out Charlotte, so lost minutes there, but he should see mid-30s minutes. I do like him a good amount there. If Ayton is back, I do really like Ayton. Looks like he should be good to go. I mean, we played him here against Brooklyn, 49.5 fantasy points. He was fantastic. He's super aggressive without Booker on the court, and with Chris Paul, should really help open things up for him. So really, really like Ayton tomorrow versus Dallas. Powell should be an absolute cakewalk for Ayton. Bridges kind of there for me. I mean, he's just there. Cam Johnson, I have a good amount of interest in Cam Johnson now. He's very score independent, coming off a super, super good shooting game last game, 9 of 11, 18 minutes, 24 points. I think it's just more of a minutes thing. He should be back to, mid-30s minutes for them. 5,300, he's going to have, all the shot attempts he wants. So yeah, I have a good amount of interest in him, Chris Paul, and Ayton. So I don't mind playing all 3 of them here versus Dallas, even though it's a little bit of a slower paced matchup and a tougher matchup versus the Mavericks. In terms of the value with, Ayton back, no real standouts. Yeah, they all kind of look okay. And then moving on to the last game, Spurs versus the Clippers. On the Spurs side, we have Cowden at the top, Jones. They're just there. I mean, if you want to get to them, sure. You just don't feel great about locking any of these guys in. I will continue to mention Podol coming off that bad game. I think they're playing tonight, so I'm not really sure what he's doing right now. But 6,000, depending on how he plays last night, could up rise his ownership or lower it. But yeah, I do like Podol, and that's really going to be it for me. I mean, sure, you can land on any of these guys. The standouts obviously are going to be the main 3, and then maybe a guy like Jay Rich off the bench, but not a lot of interest in the Spurs. They're just bad. And then on to the Clippers. Great matchup here for them. Just hope the game stays close. If it does, do have a good amount of interest in Paul George there at 8,500. The rest of the team kind of there. I don't mind taking a shot on Zubac. We know his upside. It's just, very random. So if you want to take that dart throw and it hits, great for you, because it'll probably be at super low ownership. But I mean, I don't feel great about anyone else on this team besides kind of the main 2. And yeah, that'll do it for the kind of the early look slate breakdown. I mean, not a lot to really love as of right now. just because we are waiting for some injury news. But I will, throw in Kyrie. I'll say he's a great play as of right now. Actually, I'll take him out. I do really like. So let's just fix this around real fast. I like Ayton, Chris Paul, and Cam. And then we'll throw in Brogdon. Oh, get off Phoenix real fast. So this is kind of the route I'm looking to go. Obviously, the injury news will kind of change everything. So make sure to stay updated with me on Twitter @HeartDFS. Hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with some updates on my Twitter, on my free Patreon link down below, and a prize picks video. So see you guys.